So, welcome back, everybody, to this month's edition of Lawyers Happy Hour Networking. And this is going to be a great program tonight with Frank from the Bleeding Bulb. He is going to talk about OKRs, and I'm so excited to have him come and be with us this evening. So, without further ado, Frank, please take it away.
All right, how you doing? My name is Frank Gutman. My background is basically, well, at least it started out in tech. So I worked at Fortune 500s like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen Hamilton, led several projects there. I started my own company, Bleeding Bulb, in 2010, where we help small businesses as far as business consulting, apps, websites, and marketing. So people that need apps, it's usually around either like trying to scale their business or they're looking for new customers. They're coming trying to figure out like, hey, look, I kind of hit a plateau. How can I pick it up, get these sales coming in the door? And they'll give us a call. Sometimes it's branding, sometimes it's, just consulting and figuring it out. But yeah, so we'll kind of get started. Is it just jump straight in there? Okay, all right, cool. So here, let me, let me share my screen. Let me know if you all can see my screen.
Okay, yes, great. Coming up. Mm-hmm.
All right, sweet. Okay. So optimizing your practice with OKRs, right? Okay, so again, my name is Frank Gutman. I've already told you this information right here, so you already have an idea. So what are OKRs? OKRs actually stand for objectives and key results, but I put initiatives in there because they're a very important part of OKRs. When we talk objectives, these are things that, we in the past, there's been things like SMART goals and setting goals. And the reason why people are turning to objectives and key results is because it really zeroes in on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and it creates a scope for you over a period of time. So we typically go quarterly with OKRs, and it's basically designed so if you had a business and you said this year, I want to focus on X, Y, and Z, you make sure that anything that's trying to creep in there, you can say, does this match our OKRs? And it helps you stay on track, right? So objectives are where you need to go. Right. So these are things that are not measurable. They're usually about inspiration. So it can be like take over the DMV for someone like Leia. Right. So it's like if your company you're trying to scale, it's like take over DMV. Or there for you, it may be like, be the number one marketer, or connector and in some area or something like that. Right. So these are things that's just inspirational. They give you direction, but they're not tied to metrics. So you're not putting numbers, percents, and things like that in it, right? This is something that you can easily identify and repeat, like I said, take over DMV or something like that. And so they're not metrics driven. When it comes to key results, that's when you do get into metrics, right? So if you have an objective, basically in order for you to hit an objective, you need to have ways to measure what's happening to know that that outcome is actually happening, right? So for example, if your objective was to take over DMV, maybe one of the key results is to increase your revenue to $1 million or whatever for the year, right? And so if that's the case, then you have to say, okay, my key result is to make my revenue $1 million. Well, the initiatives is going to be, how are you going to make that $1 million? Like how many leads are you going to have to approach, or how many, cold calls are you going to have to make in order to make that happen? And then from the initiative, you have your lower level tasks, where those are your day-to-days, right? And so you typically create an annual OKR, and then there's usually about 3 objectives. And those 3 objectives are just for that year. You don't want to have a whole bunch of objectives. You want it to be very focused so that you just say, I'm doing this, this, and that. After you set those annual OKRs, then you set your quarterlies based on the annuals. So the way that the hierarchy works is if you have objectives at the top and then you have key results, and then you have initiatives, and then you have tasks. So if you think of everything bubbling up, if you were to complete all of your tasks per that initiative should be complete. If you complete all of your initiatives, that key result should be complete. If you complete all of your key results, then that objective should be complete. So if you're following, like checking off, using it as a checklist, saying, hey, look, I completed all of these tasks, I completed all of these initiatives, I completed all these key results, that means you've hit your objectives, which means you should be where you want to be. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. So who's using this concept? Everyone from Intel, Slack, LinkedIn, Google was one of the early adopters. You'll see basically everyone. And it's not just tech, right? I mean, because this is a way to really get your team involved, get them to buy in, and really like be laser focused on your goals. You know, like you can't just set a goal and just leave it there, because it breaks down the way that it breaks down. It's just accountability out through the roof, right? So you give ownership of the objectives to different team members, and they take ownership of that. It is their responsibility. They may not have to do everything involved in that objective, but someone has to be held accountable. So it's their job to make sure it's done. If other tasks or initiatives involve other people, they play their part by making sure it just happens, right? So I'll go a little further just to talk about, you know, where did this come from? Back in the day, in the 1950s, there's a guy named Peter Drucker who actually invented something called management by objectives. That didn't include key results or anything like that. So when Andrew came through, he was like, you know what, like this is a cool concept, but I'm going to add a little bit to it. So he added his spin, and that's when OKRs was actually created. So John Doerr was one of the people that, and actually Daya said that she was reading the book, you know, Measure What Matters, which is a really good book. I highly suggest you all read it. It really goes into OKRs and give you an idea of how it can be leveraged in your company. And the same thing I always say to any business is make it work for you. Don't get so caught up on these are rules. And you know, at the end of the day, you're trying to accomplish whatever goal it is that you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to create structure within your organization. Maybe you want accountability and things like that. So you're really just trying to make this fit you and your business to accomplish what it is that you're going after. So when I say some of these things, like, you know, it's monthly, I explain how sometimes we tweak these things to fit our business. Okay. So anyway, John Doerr, he ended up introducing it to Larry over at Google, and they adopted it in 2013. And now everyone basically, you know, a large group of people have adopted this system. It really works. So this is basically the breakdown I said before. You have your mission, what you're ultimately trying to accomplish. Then you'll typically have about 3 objectives. And this just so happens to be 3, but you typically have 2 to 3, I would say, objectives. I would stick with 3. And then under each objective has a set of key results, right? And under the key results is actually initiatives. And under initiatives is more of the to-do. So you should think of initiatives being under key results. So as far as a schedule, it's like I said before, you usually set your annual OKRs first, right? So you would go through and you would say, okay, what are we looking to accomplish this year? This is usually in December, because you're preparing for the next year. And so you'll say, okay, what is most important to our company? We want to grow our staff, maybe our team. Okay, well, that's an objective. It needs to be something like, you know, build, what's a creative way of saying, like a powerhouse team or something like that, right? Build a powerhouse team. Maybe that's an objective for that year. Or maybe it's increase sales or increase profit, you know, so you would create an objective to say something around increasing profit without being so specific, and let the key results handle the more specific things, if that makes sense. Is that clear? Okay. All right, cool. So that's how we'll do it annually. And then after we set the annuals, usually it's the team. Different teams will look at these annual goals that you have created at the company level. So you and leadership will be creating these annual company OKRs. so that the rest of the company understands what it is, what the expectations are for that year. And when they go through each quarter to create OKRs, they can look at that as a map to what they need to create as their OKRs and make sure that they map. So you want them to get involved so that there's buy-in. If you just hand people tasks all day, you already know, like they look at it more of a, they're being told what to do, or it's just a little bit more pushback when it comes to just handing out tasks, right? But if you get them involved and say, hey, look, this is where I'm looking to go. How do you think we can get there? And make it more of a conversation. So now they can say, okay, you know what? If this is our goal and where we're trying to go, I think these objectives will get us here. And like you have them say, okay, well, if those objectives, like what does those key results look like? And they kind of map it out. So now you've done it together, right? So now they're really held accountable. It's like, okay, take ownership. You helped me come up with this way to hit this. So now we should be on the same page, right? I didn't just hand you something, we worked on it together, and now we know exactly what we're shooting for, right? And so quarterly, we will set these OKRs based on our annual OKRs, right? And then we'll grade ourselves at the end of the quarter. So if you think about it, like every month you want to kind of check. And when I say month, I mean loosely. Some people check every 2 weeks. It depends on your staff. It depends on who you have around you. Some people are more self-driven. Some people are, they need a little bit more hand-holding, right? And so you have to think about your own company and how people function to be able to say, like, how much leeway can I give a person before we're too far off to correct ourselves? Because you want to have these checkups to be able to say, hey, look, these are our goals. Looking at the key results, since they're metric based, you can say, hey, look, we said that we were going to increase 30%. We're only at 2% and we're a month 2. Like, that's too far off. So you need to stay on top of people without trying to micromanage, because you really want to put the power in their hands to show their contributions and things like that. But along with you setting these OKRs, it's like I mentioned before this call, we want to shoot for the stars. And this isn't for every company, but this is what people that are really trying to grow, like when you think of Google, when you think of Amazon, please believe they're not setting goals to hit 100%. They're setting big goals and they're expecting their team to work ridiculously hard to hit what they know they will probably not hit. The whole idea is to really push the limit, to really push yourselves and see what you can really do. So if you create a goal or objective and key results that are clearly 30% over or 50% over what you can do, right? And you go after it and you fall short 20%, that's still higher than what you would have gotten if you just shot for what you thought was 100%. So that's the idea. You shoot higher. It's like shooting for the stars to land on a cloud. It's the same concept, right? And so we really want to kind of dream big, but still be somewhat reasonable, because at the end of the quarter, if we end up landing at 70%, hitting our key results, that's still okay. Hitting 90% is like, oh, you're not really pushing yourself enough. 100%, like you didn't do it right, But again, it depends on how you all are as an organization. Some of you are real big on like, you got to hit 100%. If that's the case, make it 100%, But if you're really trying to grow, this is something that you can really leverage to get there, because when you look at those key results every single day, if you have them posted, and this is supposed to be transparent. So even at the company level, across the organization, all OKRs are available to everyone. Everyone is supposed to see what's going on in the company, where we're trying to go as a company, and be able to understand where they fall in, like their impact, right? Like you should be able to see how you're contributing to this larger thing. And so it's available for everyone. So it should be transparent, even management, right? And so one of the things that I found with a lot of companies, first, it sounds very simple, but setting up OKRs can be a little challenging in the beginning, kind of just really choosing like what is an objective versus a key result versus initiative. Initially, you think it's like kind of simple, but then you'll find like it's little like, I don't know. And then the first quarter goes by and they're like, oh man, I didn't hit anything, like, and get depressed and all this other stuff. But you got to realize, like, this is change management, right? Like, I mean, like, this is really like, you're going to change the way you're doing business. So you can't expect overnight for you to just kind of, pick this up and start running. Like, it is going to take some time, and it's something that you transition into, because you don't want to like kill the morale in your business because people feel like they're failures because they didn't hit anything that they went after. You got to make it clear that you understand that everything may not be hit, but you want everybody giving their best, and that way you can kind of set that expectation and don't set them up to, fall in that circle. So we're gonna look at some examples. This is some old stuff that I like pulled from some old clients, and I'll tell you what's not good about some of them, right? And what is okay for some. Like, these aren't really catchy. Time to grow, that's fine. This person wanted to hit 1.5 million for 2019. And so what we did was, she had merch and all of these other different things on her company, to where we were like, okay, well, if we need to break down your costs, because they didn't have like costs broken down. It was kind of just running business willy-nilly. It's like, I have some shirts, I sell them when I can. I just try to sell as much as I can. And what I get at the end of the month or whatever, hopefully is payroll and all of that. And it's like, it's no real structure. Like, you're not really chasing anything. You're just saying, I'm gonna take what I get. And we're saying you need to flip that and say, this is what I have to hit. And so when you say 1.5 million, a lot of times people could just set that goal, and just as a goal, it's just there. It's like, okay, but what do you do with it? Like, what is the path to the 1.5? And so if we start to break down the cost of your different classes and how many students it takes for you to achieve different dollar values to bring us up to the 1.5 million, then we know if we hit each of those key results, then we're going to hit our 1.5. And that means you've hit your time to grow, right? But we have to really break it down and get into the weeds of like, okay, what does this numbers look like? And because you'll see what the reason why this is a key result, you can't execute same class, and on board 188 students, right? That can't just be a task. That's a grouped type thing, right? Like, it's a group of things that need to happen for 188 students to come on board. So the lower level to that would be, what do you have to do? Email campaigns? What are you doing? Cold calls? How many cold calls are you having to do a day? And that's metric based, even at the initiative level, right? So these are key results, but even under this would be initiatives that's still metric based. So you would say, okay, I want to bring in 188 students. So I would say to the client, okay, how are we going to bring in this 188 students? Well, I'm going to need to do, I'm going to have to increase my cold calls to what? I need to do 50 cold calls a week. Okay, if you don't do 50 cold calls a week, then I know you're not hitting. That's one thing that you've already marked off. So when I put how many that you did actually do, that's percentage based. And I can look at that percentage. Did you hit 70%, or did you hit 80%, 90%, or 20%, right? And we can say, this is why time to grow did not happen, because we fell short on all of these other things. Does that make sense? Okay, so then it went down to camps and all of these other things, retail, she had merch, and it's like, okay, well, how are you going to accomplish these different things? And then it will be broken down. Later conversations will be broken down. I just showed high level, but the same thing for creating a self-running operation, right? And it's like, okay, how can that happen? Well, you kind of need an onboarding process, then have that, like, what is your hiring process? So I wouldn't even say like some of these are great. This is what she presented, but we had to tweak some of it because we don't want to leave any room for someone to say, to be able to take it a different kind of way. It's like, it needs to be absolute. Like, you did it or you didn't do it. It can't be like, create this thing that can be interpreted so many different ways to where you can just kind of slide in and say, I did it, kind of. It's like, no, you said that you need to complete X, Y, and Z. Did you hit 52 training tools? Did you create 52 training tools? That's easy to measure. No, I only did 48. What's 48 and 52? That's a percent. That's what you did, And so it's no way around it, right? Like, it's like you have to stick to what you said. This is another guy. Well, he wanted to become the #1 company for financial website development. And so for his 2020, he was like, become an influencer in the finance community. Okay, see, there's no measurement to that, right? Because it's just inspirational. That's his objective. But how is he going to hit that? He wants to do this. He feels like in order for him to say that this is complete, he needs to do this. He needs to participate in 3 financial driven events. He needs to speak at 2 meetup groups. Okay, what about this? How are you going to do that? I need to do this. I need to do that. He needed to add this. So we really just went and created his annual, and based on his annual, after we did some adjusting and things like this, and this is Net Promoter Score, if you're not familiar with it, you can definitely check that out as a way to just see how satisfied your customers are. So that's always a goal that I think, you know, people should consider, because you should be surveying your customers and things like that, just to know where you stand. And then, so when you're creating these quarterly objectives, this is an example, right? Like, this is what he said for the year, but this is just the first quarter of 2000. So he wanted to break the web by being profitable, you know? I mean, break the web while being profitable, right? So what does that mean as an objective? Well, that means I want to hit 50,000 in revenue for services and products. How are you going to do that? I'm going to run 3 ad campaigns. I'm going to complete da-da-da. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And so when it goes down to tasks, to where you're assigning it out to people, you actually know what you're doing week after week. Now you're looking at your stuff from weeks to months to quarter to years. Like, you know, your whole thing is mapped out. In each quarter, you can reset. If something doesn't hit, it can carry over. It's okay, you know? And you just do whatever it is to, at the end of the day, you're trying to hit your annual goal. You're paying attention every quarter, you're paying attention every month, but it's more of to see if you're gonna be on the right track, you know? I hope this is making sense so far. We're gonna get to questions at the end, but just let me know, okay? And we can get back to here. All right. And some key takeaways that I want to make sure you all think about is, I want to make sure we make OKRs work for you and your team. It's like I said before, a lot of people, they get so caught up on, anytime you adopt any type of framework, they think it has to be done exactly the way that they said it. The same people that created these OKRs are people like you and me, right? And so at the end of the day, they found a better way than what already existed, and they made it work for them. They coined it a different name. So I would definitely highly suggest, if some of these rules seem like, oh man, I could never check on my people every 2 weeks. Don't. I have to check every week. Okay. I can't wait a whole quarter. A lot of startups, you can't wait a quarter to do a checkup. I mean, to like set OKRs. Okay, set OKRs monthly. But the rules say you do quarterly and then set it monthly, you know? And so I'm just saying, don't be afraid to mold this into what it is that you need for your company and to fit your culture, because we all have different businesses and we run a certain kind of way. So like I said, if you don't do stretch goals, don't do it, right? You need to check up monthly, check monthly. If you need to check people weekly, check weekly, you know, because what people do a lot of times is 6 weeks on a startup, because you really need to be on top of things, you know, and a more established company will go to quarters, you know, and so that's how you're doing it. You'll break out to teams and all of this other stuff like that when you really get into it. Like I said, if stretch key results cause anxiety, ditch them. It's that simple. It's not the end of the world if your first quarter or your first few quarters are rocky. It's expected. You can never adopt something brand new and you've been doing things for years on years on years and just shift your mindset like that and everything is working smoothly. The average company, even a large company, especially larger companies, like, it's a disaster. The first quarter, they want to quit because they think it's difficult. But the problem is, it's like, you got to weather the storm. If you imagine your company, if you were this organized and you set these things quarterly, you will hit so much more than you would hit not documenting this stuff. We all know that whatever you write down, you're more likely to hit than if you leave it in your head, right? And so it's like, The goal should be, I'm going to take the time to get organized every quarter, and we're going to be on the same page as a company. When you walk through the company, you should be able to say, what are our 3 objectives? And people should be able to say, take over DMV, do-do-do, do-do-do. That's it. People should know. It should be short, quick, snappy, and make sure that everyone's on the same page. So it's like you're completely in sync as a company. Everyone knows what everyone is doing, what you're chasing after. Everybody's on the same page. Okay. Learn how to say, how does this map to our OKRs? A lot of times we'll get excited by new things that happens, right? It's like we'll be running our business. We know what our OKRs are. We said this is our focus. We just want to grow, or we just want to do this. And then a new little shiny object comes out and we're like, let's start working on this. Like, we have to train ourselves to be like disciplined and say, you know what? Sometimes things do happen to where you have to implement it, right? Obviously, like this isn't for everything, but we know that there are times to where we get distracted by things we should not be distracted by. And this just gives us a way to say our scope was to do this. You're trying to get us to do this, and even for employees to do to management, right? To be able to say, like, hold each other accountable. We said that this is what we're shooting for. We're not going to hit this if we go after that. Talk about impact. And if you want to sign off on that impact, go ahead and do it. It's your business. But you should at least have that conversation. You should at least be challenged when you want to just change in the middle of a quarter and you've told the whole company, this is what we're focusing on. So it keeps you honest too. You know, get your team and to participate to increase buy-in. That's, like I said before, anytime you're just handing out tasks is no different than, for me, like I always get people to tell me their due date. I don't assign due dates. If something is way off, I'll challenge it, maybe, right? But I want to know, when are you going to have it done? Because you set that. When you don't deliver, you set it and didn't deliver. That's on you, right? And so don't be afraid to ask for assistance if things aren't going as planned. Don't let ego or anything else get in the way. Like, this stuff isn't just like automatic. Like, everyone just isn't. It's okay to not know how to maneuver in certain situations. Feel free to always ask for help. You know, it's okay. We all trying to figure it out and get it together and just make sure that we're just structuring our company the best way we can for success. Questions?
Thank you, Frank. I'm gonna let's see what am I gonna do here? Let's see. Let's stop recording so that we can ask very candid questions.